Welcome to That 80s Show, and we start the show off a little bit differently today, earlier this week, over the past weekend. South African 80s fans, and I think anybody of good radio, mourned the loss of Mark Pilgrim. Of course, a legendary media personality, but for us, somebody who was a great influence on That 80s Show, probably indirectly, right, Dori?
I believe so, yes. I didn't even know some of this stuff. Do you realize that? You kept secrets, Paulo.
I did. So, That 80 Show started out as at the radio station Dori and I both worked at, where I worked more with Mark Pilgrim than Dori did. But we started a streaming online station, which was kind of like a staff thing, not really that serious. But, Dori and I pitched for a show and we got That 80 Show. And when we went to sit down in the studio for the playout system, the only 80s music on there, or the only reason there was 80s music on there, was because of Mark Pilgrim and his 80s show that he had on 94.7 at the time. And even he used to use TV show themes like Knight Rider and A-Team and Dallas as his talk beds. Talk beds in the biz is the music that plays underneath when you talk. And so we stole those and I used them.
Of course we did.
Of course we did. So, I mean, listen, even going further back, before I started in radio, Mark Pilgrim's last show on 5FM, he used to do the 80s hour on 5FM. And he just went, listen, it's my last show. It's a Saturday night. Now, the show, we loved it, right? Because it was kind of like, I started going out like mid-90s, and 80s music was still kind of in the charts then. It wasn't as far removed as it is now. And there'd still be a lot of clubs that had 80s nights. And
yes, we
would like do our pre-drinks usually to the soundtrack of 80s hour. And all the music that he played and all the stuff he spoke about. And then invariably he'd say, hey, listen, I'm playing at Bourbon Street or Night Shift or 80s. There was a club called 80s in Midrand. And, come join me. And we'd end up going, okay, cool, let's go there, because we just loved 80s so much, naturally, as you would.
Yes.
And then a couple of years later, of course, he joins 94.7 and got to work like relatively closely with him. Both being bald guys, we shared sunscreen tips.
Did you tell him all these stories of how he was part of your, growing up and all that?
I did. I said, hashtag no stalker. And he remembers, people coming through. And it's like anybody who has to go into the SABC, and every now and again for my day job, I do have to go in. It's like such a security process to get in there. I mean, it is virtually impossible to get in there. And he just, maybe it was different or maybe he just didn't care. He just said, come on in. Just anybody just show up. We even parked in the presenters parking bay to get in. And,
wow, I don't even think the presenters could park in the presenters parking bay.
Right. Especially not weekend presenters. And
no, I've heard that the people who worked there had to pay for parking.
Yes, that's a true story.
Yeah.
That's a true story. So that's just how crazy it was. And then, there's a piece that I'm going to play you now, and you're going to hear people shouting. And we're one of those people because we're all in the studio in the last show, and they took a photo, and that photo is on one of the albums. He used to release a CD every year, like Mark's Pilgrimage or the 80s Hour Mix, just a whole bunch of songs. And inside one of those covers, there's a photo of us, and we're in that photo with him.
When you say us, is it you and Louis?
Yeah. And obviously no one can track down that CD, but allegedly we're part of it. And then when he did his last show on 94.7, I was there as well. I said, listen, I just got to keep I've got to keep shutting you down. And then unfortunately there was no last show on Hot, but listen, he was a great influence on That 80 Show and what we do. Huge love of puns. He loved puns, which we loved.
I didn't know him as well as you, but the few interactions I did have with him, and I know people always say this, but he really was the nicest guy, just the nicest.
Yeah.
And this one just we've lost a lot of, radio legends in the last year or so. This one just feels the worst. It really does.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because he was so young and just because he was nice. Like, honestly, like, we've worked with a lot of people and people are people. Like, nobody's perfect. But him, I think he was. Like, I really think he was. You know,
as close to it, damn it, as close as you can get.
Yeah, just a really great guy. So we're going to close out the show today with Tarzan Boy by Baltimore. For some reason, it's just a song that always reminds me of him. I do remember him playing it a lot on air. Maybe that's just selective. I don't know. But I want to play something. It was one of the last things I saw Mark share on social media, you know, kind of like in his last few weeks. It was something that a guy by the name of Mac Angel, he's a music producer down in Cape Town, who did this montage of the 80s hour, right? And he did it years ago, and then Mark shared it recently. And I just grabbed it. I was like, wow, this thing is awesome. And I got hold of Mac and I said, listen, dude, do you mind me playing this out on the show today? And he graciously said, please go for it. So we are going to link to it. We're going to put it up on that 80 Show SA Facebook page. We're going to play it for you now, just kind of as a final remembrance. I don't think it's, you know, I think the sadness has been done. And I think it's about going, here's tribute to a guy who, from our point of view, loved 80s as much as we did. I think inspired a lot of what we do on the show. We spoke to him about being on the show just before he got ill, because I wanted him to see what he inspired. And unfortunately, we never got around to that. So take a listen to this tribute. That 80 Show SA Facebook page, it will be on there. We're going to put it there for you to share. Mac Angel will give you some more details of where you can find his stuff. But I just thought this is such a great tribute, about 4 minutes long, going into a song, and then regular That 80 Show shenanigans will resume. Welcome to That 80 Show, Dori. It's a nice little tribute there. So listen, if you want to get hold of that, it is Mac Angel. You can find his music, his other mixes, soundfx.co.za/Mac Angel. We will tag it. We'll put it up on That 80 Show SA Facebook. And on the socials, he's Mac Angel ZA. Dori, I got good news and bad news for you about Mac Angel, right? Phenomenal producer, makes his own music. But he also does 80s mega mixes and mashups, right? On his YouTube channel, they're all there. So he's got a couple. Like, he just takes 80s music, puts together these like hour-long mixes. I've been listening all week. There's an Italo disco one. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it doesn't really affect my life until you take up an entire show with it, right? Which I'm sure is in the pipeline. It's
in the pipeline. Listen, there's a fair smattering of modern talking in there. So I think that kind of like dilutes the Italo disco enough for you.
Germanic Italo disco.
Right. So Mac Angel, phenomenally talented. Go check him out, Mac Angel ZA on all the socials. Dori, I think Kevin Bacon is fibbing. I think the bacon is telling porkies.
Alrighty.
So, we've never heard this story before. How long has Kevin Bacon been in our consciousness, right? How long? 30 years? 35 years?
I'm going to go with longer.
Right.
When did Footloose come out?
Okay. 1984. So
1984. So that is, dude.
Yep, right.
That is like almost 40 years ago.
Okay. So, and he's around enough, you know, he's not one of these 80s guys that disappeared. He's always around. He plays off the Kevin, he plays off the fact he's Kevin Bacon. I'm the guy that's cool. There's not much new that you can learn about Kevin Bacon, right?
You know, once in a while he pops up on a podcast that I'm listening to and he always amazes me.
Okay. Have you ever heard this? So he was in Jimmy Kimmel the other day, right?
Okay.
I don't know how I feel about this. He claims that when he was 15 years old, he was in a band. Now, he's 15. I think he was in Footloose when he was 18 or 19.
Okay.
That he was in a band called Footloose at 15 years old.
What?
Okay. It was technically called Chet Brown and Footloose. Okay. But he claims that he was in this band called Footloose, an act of fate. He also had a DJ career under the stage name of Tremors. But is it too serendipitous that he's in this band called Footloose and his breakout role is Footloose? Discuss.
Okay. Did he have input on the title of the movie? Because maybe they had a random working title like fight dancing in the forest. And Kevin Bacon came along and went, you know what? I was in this band a few years ago called Footloose. Don't you think that's a better title?
Do you think at 18 years old, like kind of like unknown star, he'd have that power? I mean, Harvey Weinstein, we don't know what he was. He had a lot of control. We don't know what he was saying.
I mean, it's not like Footloose is an unknown word. It is a thing. Footloose, fancy free, all that stuff. I think we would need to find out from another source, like the producer of the movie or maybe the director. I can't remember who that is right now.
It's too convenient. It's too convenient. It's like David Hasselhoff being in a band called Michael and the Night Riders. It's just too convenient. I don't buy into it. It's too convenient.
It does seem weird. And why are we only learning this now?
40 years later. Wow. Why would, because I understand here, you're trying to protect Kevin Bacon. I don't blame you, right? It's just
I've got his back.
You got his back. He got his back bacon. So Dori's got his back bacon.
Got Bacon's back.
All right. Dori, have you had time to watch a movie for us and regale us with your interpretation in the section commonly known as movie time with Paulo and Dori?
So here's the thing about my movie this week, right? I remember watching it relatively recently, possibly even last year. And yet it is not on the Oracle, which is our document where we put our movies that we discuss every week. Because I was looking for something to do this week. This came up.
Let's just this Oracle, very generous, very generously titled Oracle. It hints at a sense of organization and planning and.
Hey, the movie list is very organized. I update it every week.
It is.
I'm very diligent at that.
No, you are very good at that. I used to update our song list. If you listen on the podcast and the live show, we do play music. On the song list, I do include. I did used to add songs, and now I don't because we've got a running order. I put the songs in there. Anything comes up, we need to log it. It's there. So I stopped updating that. So you are very diligent. Well done.
Thank you.
Let's get back to the Oracle.
So it's a bit of a long story how this movie came about. I was actually going to watch another movie. I just ran out of time. Last night I was so tired. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to get to it this week, but let me see. If I put this movie into IMDb, it's going to tell me if you like this, you'll also like these. And then maybe one of those I've seen, and then I can talk about it. And that's exactly what happened. But then I was like, no, I've definitely done this movie because I watched it recently. And why would I not have spoken about it? Go to the Oracle. This movie is not on there. And I'm thinking, this is actually a movie that you would do. Never mind me. Like, this is actually more your speed. It's not on the list. So I'm like, okay, either I forgot to add it at some point and we are repeating, but let's go with the fact that none of us have great memories anymore and I will probably have new things to say about it.
Exactly. So exactly. And you know what? We've got to embrace, we see it, we're always getting new listeners. So you may not have got to that episode. It may have been a year ago. So it could be brand new to a new listener. We're always getting new listeners.
Exactly. So let's just go with maybe you've heard about this, but let's talk about it anyway. This is actually a great film. Wait, I actually have to read to you how Wikipedia describes it. A 1984 American space opera.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Can you go wrong? The film critic Gene Siskel described it as the best of all Star Wars imitators. Now, we know I am not a Star Wars fan, but this movie is so great for so many reasons. And for me, I don't care about the Star Wars things. But if you are a Star Wars fan, apparently there are a lot of nods. Paula, I'm talking about a movie. No, let me not tell you. Please play the trailer. I've put the link there for you. Play the trailer.
Alex Rogan lives in a small trailer park in the California mountains. He has a dream to go to college.
You guys think I'm gonna hang out here, watch you shine your pickup? Forget it, man. I'm doing something with my life.
Start a career.
You really are leaving here, aren't you?
Of course I'm going away. We're both going away.
both of us, Alex.
And most of all, to get out.
You get your chance. Important thing is when it comes, you gotta grab it with both hands.
Then, one night, a mysterious stranger offers Alex an opportunity he never dreamed of.
Who are you?
I'm Centauri, and you may... No, you must trust me implicitly. Get in.
Nothing Alex Rogan has ever imagined could prepare him for what he is about to experience.
Hey.
Why was Alex chosen? And will he ever return?
Where are we going? Trust me. Oh, you're gonna love it. Love it. Look out! Oh, dear.
The last starfighter. His adventure in space is about to begin.
How have we never done that movie?
I mean, do you remember either of us talking about it? You know it, right? I'm sure you know it.
I mean, like, we've never. I mean, it is so in my wheelhouse. It involves 80s. It involves
It is so
space. It involves video games. It involves mullets.
I can't believe that I would have watched this movie and then not spoken about it on the show, because it has so many beautiful 80s things about it. I mean, it is a classic 80s movie. When I say I watched it recently for the second time. I had seen it originally way back when. And it's fantastic. And even my kid enjoyed it. Like, you know, kids are fussy.
Yeah.
But I have to say, it is, when you read the plot synopsis on Wikipedia,
It's a goddamn mess.
you will... Oh my God.
It's a mess.
I'm gonna read you bits. Listen to. Okay, so basically, you got from the trailer. So basically, this kid, he lives at this motel with his mom and his brother, and he plays this video game. And little does he know that it's actually kind of a training thing for a real intergalactic war. So he's really, really, really good at the game. But, I mean, listen to these few lines from the Wikipedia. It's so funny. Alex learns that the Starfighter arcade game represents a real-life conflict between the Rylan Star League and the Kodan Empire. The latter is led by Zur, a native Rylan traitor and son of Ambassador Endurin, the Starfighter commander, to whom the Kodan Emperor has promised control of Rylos. I mean, it's like if somebody was... If ChatGPT had to make up a ridiculously sounding sci-fi, this is what it sounds like. I mean, listen to this. Centauri arrives as Alex and Beta are attacked by an alien assassin, a Xando Zan in Zur's service. Centauri shoots off its right arm. He then explains that more Xando Zan will be coming to Earth, and the only way for Alex to protect his family and Earth is to embrace his ability as a starfighter.
I mean,
it sounds ridiculous.
No. It sounds ridiculous today.
Oh, yes, that's true.
It sounds like the greatest movie ever in 1984.
Super cool in 1984. Anyway, I have a few factoids about this movie. First of all, it's fantastic. So one of the factoids about this movie is that it was one of the first to actually use quite complex CGI. Before that, you know, they were using the old-fashioned CGI, like models and all the, the old school stuff. Whereas this movie used, I'm not even going to give you the 250,000 polygons, a resolution of 3,000 by 5,000, 36-bit pixels, blah, 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 blah. Anyway,
which look, probably a 5-year-old phone has got better resolution, right? But back in the 80s, because they were doing practical effects. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, back then, this was quite impressive. And there's a few things. So the budget for the movie was $14 million, and it made $29 million at the box office. It wasn't it wasn't Star Wars success, but it was not a flop. Let's put it that way. And it has become, as usual, a cult classic, of course. There's a cool thing. So there's this really bizarre, futuristic, but of course now very retro-looking car called the Star Car, which was actually created by Gene Winfield, which was one of the designs from Blade Runner, funnily enough.
Well,
and then they used it in this movie, which is pretty cool.
so what I was hoping is I was hoping that you'd find some factoids about the car, because the car is very it is Blade Runner looking, but it is also DeLorean looking, got the gull wing doors. And I was like wondering, is there a link between the DeLorean, the car, and the car in The Last Starfighter?
I don't see that, but it is a design from Blade Runner, which is interesting. I mean, you got to watch the trailer. We will put it on our Facebook page. I mean, there's just the most ridiculous looking people in it, but this is a highly enjoyable movie. Seriously enjoyable. And I cannot believe we have not spoken about it before.
It is honestly one of my favorites. Like, I cannot tell you. I cannot tell you. Like I said, it involves everything. And
it's totally you. It's a you movie. I've stolen you this week. And I am becoming you.
To a degree. Wait till you hear my movie, because
okay.
You kind of find the gold standard. I kind of go one below that. But The Last Starfighter, what a fantastic movie. I'm going to give that a watch again. I've been wanting to talk about that movie, rewatch it, talk about it for ages. Outstanding, Dori. And it is one of those movies that became a cult classic, so of its time. Like I say to you. Now, what I have to say though, before that, is that Dori and I never know what movie the other one's talking about. We've never landed on the same movie in the same week. But
never.
It's not like we set up a theme or say, this week let's do sci-fi, let's do horror, whatever. We just kind of freestyle it. I also ended up on a science fiction movie from round about the same time. Not dissimilar. There was something, I think what happened in the 80s is you had Star Wars, late 70s, early 80s, created this whole aura of intergalactic battles. And then for 4 or 5 years afterwards, people are kind of going, what if that came to Earth and Earth went there? Because this is now set in a galaxy far away. What if those galaxies came to us? So then you had E.T., you had The Last Starfighter, you had Mac and Me, and you had my movie. Now, most of the times when we find movies, I love more the story behind the movie as much as the movie, right? So
totally.
When I say Mel Brooks, right, science fiction doesn't automatically pop into your mind as a movie that he'd do, right?
Well, Spaceballs.
Spaceballs. Look, he also, through Brooks Films, they also did The Fly, and he did The Elephant Man. But then, of course, yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
that they did The Fly.
Yeah.
One of the greatest movies ever made in the history of movies.
Exactly. But of course, he's more Robin Hood, Men in Tights, Spaceballs, History of the World, the producers, parody type movies, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But not science fiction, especially not this genre. So he gets approached with this idea for a movie. And the idea for the movie is that distant planet, I think it's far in the future. It's a post-apocalyptic world. So it's Earth, but it's not Earth as we know it. Something's happened. There are no adults. There's only kids. Now, 80s kids, like even the kid in The Last Starfighter, you say kid, he's probably supposed to be playing 15 years old. He's definitely 27. The guy playing.
He's supposed to be around 17 or 18 because he's just finished high school and he doesn't get into college. That's like kind of the whole storyline. Yeah. So he's around, let's call him 17. Okay. But he looks 28.
Same, right? So that's it.
Right. Okay.
So they live on this type of Earth. There's no water, okay? Which people warn us, that's going to happen. There's no water.
Dude, I'm beginning to think that you are going to do the movie that I was going to watch last night, but was too tired to watch.
Oh, boy.
I swear. It's sounding that... Okay, hang on. Carry on.
Okay.
How funny would that be, though? That would be hilarious.
It'll be the closest. It'll be the closest we've got.
Oh.
Closest we've got. So,
oh, my goodness.
Right. So it's this world with no water, bunch of kids, kind of like a collection of Goonie-like kids, but on this desert version of Earth. And they play the sport, which is kind of like roller hockey, lacrosse, on roller skates type of thing, right? This is where, like, your movie, the story is all over the place. The story is really all over the place because it's part this thing that they're trying to get away from this despotic government, but it's also their adventures in the sport, Mighty Ducks style. But then also this orb arrives, right? And this orb is a being, but it's an orb who's now going to lead them on their journey out.
Hey, we are not doing the same movie.
Right, okay.
But there's a lot of similarities.
Oh no, it's post-apocalyptic mid-80s space movie. Like they're not going to be dissimilar to each other.
Yeah.
The movie, even though everything I've told you makes right, it's like you go, okay, it sounds like things. The name of the movie makes no sense. There's no tie into that. The name of the movie is called Solar Babies, right?
Never heard of it.
Okay. Now it's called Solar Babies because that's the name of their roller hockey team.
Okay.
Right. It's got nothing to do. It's like in the middle of this like space drama, you've got this Mighty Ducks in space thing happening with this creature. Okay. Kind of like if you didn't have budget to make E.T. and you made him into a ball to save money, because that's literally what happened, right? So shenanigans, they escape, this orb alien frees them, attracts other people, it starts raining, they've got water, the bad people wash away. It's all a happy ending, right? Not so much for Mel Brooks. Okay, so he gets approached for this movie and he goes, it's got a lot of things movies need nowadays, right? It's got dystopian, post-apocalyptic, kids, space, roller hockey. I'm doing it.
What year was it?
This is 1986.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're going like, this is what people like now. This is what people are into. I'm Mel Brooks. Like, fuck, I've got a track record. Let's go for it. So he puts money in and then as usual, budgets and reshoots and reshoots and reshoots. And they run out of the first 5 million that he gave them. So he says, listen, I'm going to pull the plug. But his other investors say, no, we've seen some shots. Listen, there's some stuff that's really crap, but we've seen enough here that this movie could be really good. Let's put some more money in. So they put some more money in. Of course, they burn through that money, reshoots. Mel Brooks puts his own money in now at this point because he says, I'm too far in now. I can't pull out. It's too much money wasted. Mortgages his house, his vehicles, and a holiday home to now fund the rest of this movie, right? And he's like, doesn't even tell his wife. He's like, I'm really in the can. So he does something. Do you ever watch The Producers?
Oh, yes.
So he does something very akin to The Producers in that he creates this trailer. He edits together the trailer from all the best footage to make this movie look like the best damn movie since Star Wars.
Oh, my God.
Right? And now he starts shopping this around Hollywood, going around to everybody.
Well, he got the idea from The Producers. The Producers was made in the 60s.
Okay, exactly. Because he then made it post that. I think he made another version later on. But so that's the story. I mean, so that's the story of The Producers. They make this fake trailer, or they make a trailer just because the show's so bad. So that's what he claims he does. So he makes this amazing trailer and starts shopping it around Hollywood, and a bidding war starts. I mean, Michael Eisner, who I think is now at Disney but was like at Paramount, Jeffrey Katzenberg. I mean, these are big names in Hollywood, big studio leads, goes to MGM and shows them the movie. Starts a bidding war between all of them because they're like, oh my God, this is the next Star Wars. Like this is Star Wars with E.T. Like we got to have this movie.
Is this trailer available for us to see?
Not from what I found. I couldn't find this trailer anywhere, but it was like an internal 10 minutes cut, right? So apparently in Hollywood, this is what you do for now distribution. So now goes shopping it around. Eventually sells it. So he's now invested 15 million into it. He eventually sells a distribution for 14 million. So he's like, oh my God, thank God I'm in the can for $1 million, right? Okay. I'm Mel Brooks. I can handle that. So eventually sells it to the distributor. They release the movie, stinks up the place. It's like, it's a mess. It's all over the place. There's semblances of a really good movie because the cast is really good. I'll read you some names. Jason Patric, who was, so Jason Patric, good. Jamie Gertz, she's been in a lot of stuff, solid actress. And then Lucas Haas. He was that Amish kid.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
He was, but there was a stage where he was in everything.
Everything. He was just the go-to Hollywood kid, early 90s. Yeah. So he was in this. So it's like had a really strong cast. Charles Durning, solid, really strong cast. And people were like, it should work. It kind of never did work. They eventually spent 25 million on it, but of course Mel Brooks was out at this point. It made 1.6 million at the box office initially. So it totally stinks.
Wow. Well, I mean, I've literally never heard of it.
No, but
I definitely haven't seen it.
No, but you You wouldn't have. So anyway, over the years, eventually Mel Brooks says, look, over the years, he was on a podcast called How Did This Get Made? Where he explains this whole story. And he says, eventually over the years, after DVD and home releases and streaming, it's made back that 25 million, but it's only taken the best part of 40 years.
I mean, talk about the long game.
Exactly. Got to get in and get out quickly. So everybody says, listen, there's enough in this movie that it's a good movie, but for various reasons, it's just not a good movie. And you talk about special effects. The special effects in this movie are so bad, Dori. Like, honestly.
And this is 2 years after The Last Starfighter.
Exactly. But they've blown the budget. They've completely blown the budget. Like, one of the things Mel Brooks says is that they convinced him to go shoot the movie in Spain because there's no unions in Spain, so there's no set rates. So they can kind of just charge film crew what they want to charge. But it then rains for the first 30 days of production, and the movie's supposed to be on a world with no rain, no water, so they can't do anything. So they're paying people for like 30 days to sit around, right? So he says, this is just...
They didn't research the climate before they decided on doing this.
It was unseasonal. It was a freak. It was just a freak occurrence. Yeah. You know,
so they were doomed.
And Mel Brooks in the podcast goes, listen, naturally, the rain in Spain falls mostly on my farm set, right? So this orb creature that comes in. So now, obviously, when they first meet the orb, because they play this roller hockey lacrosse game, they kind of like playfully knock him around from one stick to the next stick. But oh my God, the kids are looking in the different direction. The orb's going left. They're looking right. They're swinging at it. Like, I'm sure post for the DVD release, they fixed all things like that. But in the original, it's just this, they're looking up at the orb's floating at like neck level. It's just an absolute CGI mess.
How old are the kids?
So they were all these guys were about 16, 17 in real life. And
so they're not even like young kids that you can't control.
No. So another thing that happened is that they did get uncontrollable, because now it's a whole bunch of kids away from home and they don't really have respect for anybody. Mel Brooks had to be flown over to go crap everyone out because the kids were just out of hand. So they were just not playing ball. So he had to go over to now go say, listen, this is adult stuff here. And then after that, they were actually perfectly behaved. But just one of those movies that goes like, great story behind it, probably better than the story of the movie. But if you're looking for a sci-fi double header this weekend, I would say start with, because listen, most people are going to watch this definitely in your late 30s, early 40s and beyond, right? You don't have time, and watching movies is tiring. I don't know about you, but like I watch movies in 3 sittings. Like I'm not doing it in one, right?
Approximately.
Exactly.
Correct.
So I'd say watch The Last Starfighter first, right?
Because you won't fall asleep in that one.
No. You'll at least get hour, 10 minutes. Then you'll fall asleep. And then put Solar Babies on in the background. And so you're aware of what's going on with it. Because it's worth a watch. It's not don't avoid this. Don't swerve it. Watch it.
Yeah.
But it's watch shit. That's a key word. But I love the story. Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks can do no wrong. It always works out for him.
Honestly, just can't.
So sci-fi double header, Dori. Well done to us. Serendipity.
Nice.
Well done to us. Nothing contrived or convenient there like Kevin Bacon being in a band called Footloose. That is natural and organic. We haven't spoken about Wham or George Michael in a while. There's not much story going on around. Last we heard there was an unauthorized biography going around. So I came across a story. I will post the story up because the story's not as interesting as what it led me to. I came across a story about the saxophone bit on Careless Whisper, right?
Okay.
How that came about. And it's a story of kind of like they brought in a lot of people played stuff. George was in a bad mood, blah, 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 went back and forward. Eventually got to the guy, and they had 10 hours of saxophone recordings alone because George just could not get a saxophonist that he felt was right. So out of the story, somebody put on YouTube, this is something for the weekend, definitely. 10 hours of the saxophone loop from Careless Whisper, nonstop.
Okay. I mean, I love it, but why?
Right. So, yeah, the story kind of like somebody must have read that story and gone, fuck, 10 hours of the saxophone on Careless Whisper. I'm making the loop. It is on YouTube. Put it in the back. Like maybe you're trying to conceive. Like maybe, you you're ovulating. It's the time, starting a family. Put this on and you will get impregnated. I don't understand science, but I know this works. But some of the comments on this video kill me, right? As it goes through, there's somebody that's documented like 10, 15 like different timestamps. Ooh, at this point, it sounds oddly depressing. Wow, at this point, it sounds like a dramatic fight scene. Ooh, this sounds like a slow romantic scene. Ooh, this part sounds like you're speeding away from someone you're avoiding. It's just the same thing. I like the part where he plays the saxophone. The real question is, why does it not get old?
I mean, I don't think it would get old, but I haven't tried it for 10 hours.
No, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. That is 10 hours of Careless Whisper, saxophone only. And it is rated M for strong sexual content, which is something I'm all for. But why I get to George Michael? Why I get to George Michael is because Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, every year they have inductees. Surprisingly, George Michael's not in there yet. Shocks me. And
he's more for the Soul Hall of Fame.
Oh, but everyone's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because the nominees,
I know.
Everyone's in there. Because the shortlist this year is George Michael, Missy Elliott, Tribe Called Quest, White Stripes. Really? I mean, they
really?
They're relative new. Soundgarden, Rage Against the Machine. Willie Nelson's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That's ridiculous.
What? Sheryl Crow, Cyndi Lauper, Kate Bush, Joy Division, and New Order, right? So what happened?
So how many people get chosen?
I think they induct 5. So of these, they're going to induct 5 this year, right? It doesn't mean that they don't get inducted, but they induct 5. So George Michael is currently leading the votes. They close off the votes at the end of April. He's currently leading the votes just ahead of Cyndi Lauper. Warren Zevon's in there. I don't know who that is. Iron Maiden and Soundgarden.
Warren Zevon.
I don't know.
Werewolves of London.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I know that. Right.
But I mean, not...
No.
I mean, as like a 2-hit wonder maybe? Really?
I mean, over Willie Nelson.
Really?
Right. So even Rage Against the Machine, even the White Stripes, I don't like them. Even Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah, that's a culty thing, probably.
So those are the votes. George Michael is top. Why? I mean, he's not going to fall out the top 5, so he's definitely going in. But I'm surprised that he's not in already. So
yeah. That's bizarre.
Very bizarre. You got to vote. Thing is, if you get George Michael into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they bring him back to life. That's a rule. So I encourage you to vote.
Don't make me cry.
So get voting. You can vote every day. You can vote once a day every day. You can only vote once, and only one vote a day counts. And get George Michael into that.
Will you put the link where we can vote on our Facebook page?
Of course I'll do it. Of course I will do such a thing.
Thank you.
Get George Michael into the, what do they call it? The RNRHOF. RNRHOF. Right. Okay. So to end off the show today, back to movies. I wonder what it was. Why invisibility was such a big thing in the 80s and why there were so many 80s movies. I found an article on Cracked that talks about the most perverted acts invisible people have committed in movies, right?
Yeah.
They got 4 movies there. I'm going to talk about them, talk about the perverted acts, but they're all with 3 80s movies and a porn movie. Okay. What was it about the 80s that was such perverts with invisibility? So the first movie, do you remember this, The Invisible Kid?
No.
When you're 17 and you're invisible, life gets complicated. So it came out in 1988. Nerdy teen, which they say, you know, he's nerdy because he had false glasses. He creates a powder that makes him invisible, right? Here are the things that he does. So of course he's a horny nerd and he's in love with his neighbor, Cindy. Cindy is played by China Phillips of Wilson Phillips. Did not know this. Did not know she was in the movie. Yeah. So what does he do? He obviously peeps in on her while she's changing in her bedroom. But then after he goes invisible, he goes in to watch her get busy with her boyfriend and wears her underwear. But that's going to uninvisible you. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, people must do what they do, but that's going to uninvisible you. Okay, so anyway, get invisible, become horny.
Okay.
The next one, the man who wasn't there, right?
This I remember.
Being invisible gets you into spy rings, diplomatic circles, and the girls' locker room. The funniest thing you've never seen. That's great. So this movie came out in 3D. Oh my God, 80s 3D sucked. But it came out in 3D. Right, so what happens in this movie? Obviously, the main character. Guess who played the main character? Guess who was?
I feel like it was Chevy Chase.
Close. Steve Guttenberg.
Oh, okay. But Chevy did an Invisible Man movie, definitely.
Oh, he must have.
Maybe not in the 80s, but he definitely did one.
He did. He was also an invisible spy. Maybe it was even a remake of this movie, who knows? So Steve Guttenberg, as it starts off, he's quite a douchebag. He hits on his fiance's girlfriend. He arrives late for weddings. He's just not a really good guy. He takes a trip to a girls' college, and somehow through 80s shenanigans, he becomes invisible, right? And I mean, it doesn't really give much detail. But it just understand that a lot of time he is staring at naked women. Any chance you can get a naked woman, Steve Guttenberg is staring at them. And of course, because he's invisible, you don't even see him on screen. You just see naked women. 80s movies.
There really was a specific obsession with it. And I mean, the other thing was that whole thing that Superman had where he could see through things, the X-ray vision. And the main purpose of the X-ray vision was to look through a woman's clothing.
Right.
I mean, it was just a one-track obsession.
I know. I mean, what are you talking about?
Is it a Harvey Weinstein thing?
I'm telling you. I didn't even do that. Listen, Cracked would tell you if these were Harvey Weinstein movies, but you know what? It sounds like he was definitely involved. And those two are they were relatively more mainstream movies. Now we start getting a little bit niche. A movie called The Invisible Maniac.
Never heard of that one.
No, really. It says, it was at this point I had to do some brief research to make sure I was not in fact watching a pornographic film. By all indications, it wasn't designed or marketed as pornographic, but instead as a comedy horror. But the whole movie feels like a proof of concept that somebody thinks being invisible would be really cool. And it all involves naked women, peeping on naked women, murdering naked women.
Jeez.
The whole thing's creepy, but the most sketchy moment comes at the end when the female news anchor reporting on Dawn Winkle's murder spree has her top ripped off on camera by none other than the Invisible Maniac himself. So, and then the last one this is just the porn, The Erotic Misadventures of the Invisible Man. I don't think it's worse than the others.
I'm sure it's not even as bad as some of the others.
God, the 80s had a weird obsession with being invisible perverts. I think they had a weird obsession with being perverts in movies. And then they just go, okay, invisible perverts, nerdy perverts, space perverts.
Yes, what would make it easier to see more naked women? I know, if you were invisible. Let's just do that.
Even more so, okay, Steve Guttenberg, we probably have to pay him. Let's have a movie where we don't have to pay him as much. Still attach his name.
He's not in it.
Show lots of nudity. This is our Harvey Weinstein all over it.
Oh, God.
So this has been That 80 Show. Everything we've spoken about today, from the 10-hour George Michael Careless Whisper saxophone loop right through to Mac Angel and his fantastic 80s mixes, including his tribute to the late Mark Pilgrim. You can find all the links, That 80 Show SA Facebook page. Dori, you left last week with a very rude message about what you would do to Jason Bateman and his 80s hair. Do you have something equally as shocking, or we're going to keep it clean?
No, we'll keep it clean this week. I mean, the thing I learned that I really did not know, which we're still skeptical about, right, is Kevin Bacon being in a band called Footloose.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't buy it. I call bullshit on Kevin Bacon. I'll put on my Sunday shoes.
We'll have to interview him and ask him.
Exactly. Put on your Sunday shoes. Or bullshit. Thanks for joining me, Dori. Goodbye.
Bye.